Assalamu alaikum everyone. This is me Fatima Business Valley. I'm a student of Rehan AI Teachers Training Institute Batch 22. So today I'm going to discuss a very important topic with Sasmi. The topic is the science behind happiness, how to cultivate joy. So today we will learn about this topic from Sasmi.
Hey, how's it going?
Today I want to learn about the topic is the science behind happiness, how to cultivate joy.
I'm into that. It's a huge topic, but basically, it's a mix of biology and habit. Where do you want to start, the brain chemistry side of things, or more of the like practical how do stuff?
My first question is this: what role happiness mean from a scientific perspective?
Scientifically, it's less of a feeling and more of a biological signal. It's essentially your brain's way of rewarding you for doing things that aid survival or social bonding. It mostly comes down to a cocktail of neurotransmitters like dopamine for reward and serotonin for mood stability. So, from a science lens, happiness is basically a chemical state that tells your body, this is good, keep doing this. Does that make sense, or does it feel a bit too clinical?
Nothing special. Can happiness really be measured? How?
It's tricky because it's subjective, but researchers try. The most common way is through self reporting. Basically, those surveys where people rate their life satisfaction. But if you want the harder science, they look at things like cortisol levels to measure stress or use fMRI scans to see which parts of the brain light up. There's even a focus on positive affect, which is just tracking how often someone experiences joy versus sadness over time. Do you think a number or a brain scan actually captures what being happy feels like?
What are the main chemicals in the brain linked to happiness?
You've got the big four. First is dopamine. That's the reward chemical you get when you hit a goal. Then there's serotonin, which is more about balance, mood, and feeling significant. Oxytocin is the bonding hormone, usually triggered by touch or trust. And finally, endorphins, which are the natural painkillers that kick in during exercise or laughter. Which one of those sounds most like the kind of happiness you're looking for?
How does dopamine affect our mood?
Dopamine is basically the motivation molecule. It doesn't actually make you feel satisfied as much as it makes you feel driven. It creates that surge of anticipation when you're about to get something you want, which pushes you to take action. The problem is that it's short-lived. Once you get the reward, the dopamine drops and you start craving the next hit. That's why scrolling through social media can feel addictive but leave you feeling empty. Do you feel like you're more driven by that kind of excitement or by a more steady kind of contentment?
What role does serotonin play in happiness?
Serotonin is more like the stabilizer. Well, dopamine is all about the high and the chase. Serotonin is about feeling content, secure, and emotionally balanced. It's what keeps your mood steady so you don't crash hard after a dopamine spike. When it's functioning well, you just feel a general sense of well being and calm. It's interesting because it's heavily linked to your sense of social status and respect, basically, feeling like you belong and are valued. Does that sound more like the kind of happiness that lasts longer than the dopamine rush?
Can happiness be learned or trained?
Yeah, I can. There's this concept called the hedonic treadmill, the idea that we always return to a baseline level of happiness regardless of what happens to us. But research shows that while genetics set your baseline, you can actually shift it through intentional habits. It's basically like training a muscle by consistently practicing things like gratitude or mindfulness. You're essentially rewiring your brain to notice and value positive signals more often. Do you think you're the kind of person who can consciously change your mindset, or does it feel like your mood is just something that happens to you?
I don't think so. What is the connection between gratitude and happiness?
It's a direct link. When you consciously practice gratitude, you're basically forcing your brain to switch from a lack mindset, focusing on what's missing, to an abundance mindset. Biologically, it triggers a release of dopamine and serotonin, which boosts your mood instantly. But the long term win is that it trains your brain to scan the environment for positives instead of threats or problems. It's like upgrading your internal filter. Since you've looked into gratitude before, do you feel like it's actually shifted your baseline, or does it still feel like a chore sometimes?
How does exercise improve mental well being?
It's a powerhouse for the brain. Most people talk about the runner's high, which is the endorphins kicking in to mask physical pain, but there's more to it. Exercise also boosts BDNF, basically a protein that helps your brain grow new connections and repair cells. Plus, it burns off cortisol, the stress hormone, which clears the mental fog. It's almost like a biological reset button for your mood. Boom. Do you have a go to way to stay active, or does the idea of exercise for happiness feel a bit forced?
Can social relationship increase happiness levels?
Absolutely. From a scientific standpoint, it's probably the biggest factor. We're wired for connection. So when we have strong bonds, the brain releases oxytocin, that bonding hormone I mentioned. It lowers stress and makes us feel secure. There was actually this massive Harvard study that ran for decades, and the main takeaway was that the quality of your relationships is the single best predictor of long term health and happiness, even more than money or fame. Do you find that you get more of a boost from a few deep connections or from having a wide circle of people?
No. What is the difference between pleasure and happiness?
I think you might mean pleasure and happiness. If so, they're actually very different. Pleasure is a short term sensory experience like eating a piece of chocolate or getting a like on a photo. It's a quick hit of dopamine that fades almost immediately. Happiness, or well being, is a deeper, more sustainable state of satisfaction with your life as a whole. It's more about serotonin and a sense of purpose. Basically, pleasure is a spike, but happiness is a steady flow. Does that distinction make sense to you?
Okay. How does stress reduce happiness scientifically?
Stress basically floods your system with cortisol. In short bursts, it's fine, but when it's constant, cortisol acts like a disruptor. It suppresses the production of serotonin and dopamine, which are the chemicals that actually make you feel good. It also puts your brain into survival mode, meaning your prefrontal cortex, the part responsible for logic and emotional regulation, takes a backseat to the amygdala, which just handles fear and anxiety. So, scientifically, stress doesn't just make you feel bad, it physically blocks your brain's ability to experience happiness. Do you feel like stress usually hits you as a physical tension or more of a mental loop?
What is mindfulness and how does it increase joy?
Mindfulness is basically the act of paying full attention to the present moment without judging it. Instead of your mind drifting to a mistake you made yesterday or stressing about something next week, you're just here. Scientifically, it increases joy by calming the amygdala, the brain's alarm system, which lowers your stress levels. When you stop that constant cycle of worrying, it opens up space for you to actually notice and appreciate the small, positive things that you normally ignore. It's like turning up the volume on the good signals in your brain. Since you've explored this before, do you find it easier to be mindful during a specific activity, or is it still a struggle to stay present?
So, my last question is this: how does positive thinking impact the brain?
It's all about neuroplasticity, the brain's ability to reorganize itself. When you consistently practice positive thinking, you're essentially strengthening the neural pathways associated with optimism and resilience. It's like carving a path through a forest. The more you walk it, the easier it becomes to go that way. This reduces the activity in the amygdala so you don't react as intensely to stress, and it increases the efficiency of your prefrontal cortex, helping you solve problems more calmly. You're basically training your brain to default to a solution oriented state rather than a panic state. Do you feel like you've started to notice those paths in your own thinking lately?
No, I don't feel something. Okay, thank you, Maya, for a great conversation.
No problem at all. Glad you enjoyed it. Catch you later.
So that's all about the conversation. I hope you learned something new in this conversation. Thank you so much, everyone, for listening to me. Allah Hafiz.